Yeah. So what happened was, I was in Northern Ireland doing the undercover stuff with 14 Int. I wasn't actually a 14 Int person. It's just that four SAS guys always go on every course because it's actually a really good skill to have. So we did I did a 2 year stint really. So 18 month, 6 month course, 18 month over in Northern Ireland. And then as I got back into B Squadron back there, they were sort of doing the build up really to Bosnia. So all the lads were actually away doing courses, and Billy was actually on a Serbo-Croat course, trying to learn a bit of the language. Only 6 weeks, so it was really the basics. And I was doing catch up really. So the boys deployed, and I was about 2 weeks behind because I was away doing another course. So they deployed. I then came out and then deployed, and we ended up in a place called Bihać, which is the northwest of the country. Little enclave run by the Muslims, by 5 Corps, General Dadakovic, quite a hardcore organisation really, because they'd held out. They'd really held their own really against Serbian opposition. But the Serbs just couldn't take this enclave. So that's where our 4-man team went up to Bihać. So we took over from A Squadron. We took over and then cracked on. Just before, and we were out there really when the period was 3 months with the UN, and then overnight it was NATO. So just before, probably about a week before it became NATO, we had to set up a meeting with the Serbian and Muslim general. And it wasn't a biggie, it wasn't a major. And all it was all about troop movements of where they were actually going to, on a map, say where their position, and they had to agree it, basically. So we set the meeting up. So me and Billy, the day before, had gone down there to do the recce. And the meeting was going to be in no man's land between the Muslim front line and the Serbian front line, right in the middle. And so we were going to use 2 LI, the second light infantry. They were part of the UN, and they were in warrior vehicles. And we had one of their vehicles was going to be protecting the site. We're all happy about it. Me and Billy then went down, had a quick chat with the Serb front line, had a quick coffee, son of a bitch, and then came back and we said, "Listen, guys, we'll catch you tomorrow. We'll be down. We'll set the meeting up. We'll come down." And I pride myself on situational awareness. Doing some of the stuff that we've done, your situational awareness is going to be quite high. What we forgot, and I take the blame for this, is we forgot the general factor. So when they brought the general forward, their frontline troops completely changed. It was a special forces type organisation had come forward. So when we'd set the meeting up with me and Billy, the other 2 lads in the patrol stayed with the UN people doing the meeting. And me and Billy decided to walk down, have a quick chat with the Serb front line again, as we did the day before. But as we were approaching, we realised that something seemed a bit strange here. It didn't quite seem right. But we continued. Why wouldn't you? Unfortunately, we don't look like UN. We don't wear the berets. We don't wear the helmet. Certainly don't wear body armour. Anything to do with UN, we just bin it. And the reason being, we've got a job to do. And if you're part of the UN, the restrictions are too high. You really don't get the job done. So we went the other way. Yeah, bin all that crap, and we'll just balls it out, basically. And then we got to the front line, and these troops came out, totally different to the ones we met the day before. And we must have spooked them because our hair was quite long. We looked scruffy. We had normal cams on. British cam had pistols. Didn't have longs with us. Just had our pistols and 3 or 4 spare magazines or whatever, Map, compass, notebooks, all that, all the basics. All very sterile. Nothing on there at all to give away who we were. But we had a UN ID card. So they took us prisoner. And to be honest, you're not going to win a firefight with two pistols against 8 or 9 Serbs holding their version of an AK-47, if that makes sense, their variant. So, we were bank of rights, no issues with that. We then got dragged over into, not dragged, but told to follow this guy. And they took us to a little farm building, which was on a main road. Quick tactical, as normal, quick tactical questioning, I suppose. They weren't happy with what we were saying, so they literally disarmed us. They then put us in a vehicle and then drove us the drive back to a place called Prijedor. So it was near an area called Stansky Mosque, which is where the meeting was. And they then decided to take us way behind the Serbian lines to a place called Prijedor. Now, Prijedor, the camp that they took us to, was notorious for starving and killing Muslims. It was on all the TV news and that lot. So it was a pretty grim place to get taken to. But it was a 45-minute drive. And the bizarre thing about it is, me and Billy were sat on the back seat, and we were sort of whispering away. And bear in mind that we're now seeing all the Serbian troop movement, so we're getting quite a lot of intel from this sort of whatever we're doing, And then what happened was about halfway up there, me and Billy chatting, the guy in the front seat, who was a captain, said something in Serb to the passenger, and he got up on his knees and then pointed his weapon at me and Billy. But he then cocked it, and me and Billy sort of looked at each other. I don't know if it's, I don't know, maybe a bit of nerd, but we started laughing because our first thought went, hold on, you're on the front line. How come you haven't got a round in the chamber? And oh, by the way, we could have jumped him. If I'd known that, we could have flipping jumped on him, So it was a bit of a nervous sort of laughter, but also typical military humour. What crappy drills that was by these two, He wasn't happy, obviously, because we'd laughed at him. He then sat back down, drove. 45 minutes later, we got to the camp or whatever. Got thrown into quite a long corridor, pretty grim looking place. And I was the one that got dragged in first for interrogation. Now, I was senior to Billy, although Billy had been out there a bit longer than me. But Billy had sort of joined the regiment about maybe a couple of years before, 3 years maybe. But I'd been away in Northern Ireland, so I hadn't really worked with Billy apart from the very first anti-terrorist team we did back in Hereford, So I got dragged in first, and I just, Northern Ireland training kicked in, cover story, just give him a bit, and then stick with it, So my cover story was, listen, mate, I've only been here 2 weeks. Correct, I've only been there 2 weeks, and I'm just a driver. Yeah, that was a bit of a bullshit, but I'm just a driver, so I know nothing. So an hour later, they're trying to get more out of you. I just stuck with that. No, sorry, mate. Clue? No, driver. No, nothing. So they threw me out in disgust and then dragged Billy in. And then Billy went through roughly the same. Now, unfortunately for Billy, when we first got captured, Billy had tried to speak a bit of Serbo-Croat. So they must have put 2 and 2 together and thought, Billy's the senior one, and the driver is Mr. Thicky. Let's just give him a bit of a hard time out there. So Billy was in there for an hour, came out, and then 10 minutes later, Billy got dragged back in again. I was expecting me to go in, but Billy went in, out. Billy got dragged in about 4 or 5 times for interrogation. I was left in the corridor to the pleasure of that guy that we laughed at, who took great pleasure in giving me a bit of a hard time. The odd little bit of a kick in. He had a bayonet and he was sort of, threatening you. Stuff that you expect. When you get captured, you expect a bit of hassle. I didn't feel at the time that we were going to get killed. It's uncomfortable. It's a pain in the ass, but you accept it. Just get on with it, and away you go. And it was keeping him quiet because, he was giving me a bit of a hard time and stuff like that. So anyway, me and Billy finally got together. When he threw him out of his last one, we were actually fairly close together. And Billy said, he sort of leant over and went, "Hell, mate, what did you tell him?" I went, "Sorry, mate, I just told him I'm the driver." And Billy looked at me and went, "Yeah, but I'm the driver." Snooze, you lose, mate. In the meantime, the two lads had realised that we'd gone up back at the meeting. Had realised that we'd been captured, so rang up one of the generals, General Smith, I think, in Sarajevo. General Smith, brilliant, fantastic attitude, no dramas. Just go in there and arrest the Serbian general. So they went into the meeting, arrested the Serbian general, explained the situation to him. Said, right, you've got two options. You either get the two boys released or you're being taken back to Bihać. And the thought of a Serbian general going to Bihać, bearing in mind that these people have been at each other's throat for quite a long time, he absolutely pooped his pants. So he got on the sat phone. And about an hour and a half later, we got brought back basically, and we were sort of walking back to the meeting. I suppose they'd given us the weapons back and everything else, and that was it. And me and Billy looked at each other and thought, well, that was a bit surreal, bit of a strange day, I suppose.